So all modern heat pumps have some type of defrost cycle to clear the frost and ice that builds up on a heat pump during the heating cycle. Usually the defrost components consist of a control board that has the brains for the logic for the timing, and they either use a thermistor for a coil sensor, or they use an open or closed switch for the coil sensor to tell the board that the coil needs to be defrosted. Most of your heat pump control boards have timers on them that can be set to either lengthen or shorten the defrost cycle. These pins are usually marked 30, 60, and 90, which represents 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes of accumulated runtime on the compressor, when the board will go and check the coil sensor to see if the coil needs to be defrosted. For many years we had a Paragon type timer that was a mechanical clock that you could set for time initiated or temperature or pressure terminated defrost, and you could set up to 12 defrost cycles on this device. This was all before the solid state boards came along with the solid state timers in them. This is the open or closed switch, which is used on a lot of heat pumps. It's going to close at a certain temperature, usually around 30 degrees or 32 degrees, and it will open once the coil gets up to a warmer temperature. So this click-on type switch, it must be firmly attached to the piping of the coil. It must be in the proper place. Most manufacturers put in their installation guide a diagram that shows the proper location of this coil thermostat. And also one note, because this switch is metal, sometimes the switch becomes shorted and it will short to ground through the coil and cause the system to blow a fuse. So this is a common known problem on these types of switches. So if you're having a heat pump that is blowing fuses, you might want to take a look at this and see if it's shorted to the coil. So these are the thermistor type sensors that are used on most heat pumps for coil sensing, and they are strapped onto the coil tubing, and manufacturers will give you the locations for those also. And all of these sensors are 10K ohms, which means that at 77 degrees these thermistors should ohm out at 10,000 ohms. So keep that in mind when you're troubleshooting these, that they can be ohmed out to see if they are within range or not. So the 30, 60, 90 minute timer selections is accumulated compressor runtime before the board will check the coil sensor to see if the unit needs to defrost. If the coil sensor is not closed, the board will reset the timer and go for another time cycle. If the coil sensor is closed, the board will initiate a defrost cycle. Also notice that the T1 terminal enables the defrost timer, and it must be energized for the defrost timer to start. Many defrost problems stem from this fact, that when techs are replacing boards, sometimes they don't get the T1 terminal wired correctly, and so the timer is not powered, and so the heat pump will never go into defrost. Most of the boards that we've shown so far have wires and pins to set the 30, 60, 90. There are some boards like this one that have dip switches that you can put in different configurations for 30, 60, 90, and in this case you have a 120 minute interval. As we said before, for the defrost cycle to function properly, the timing circuit, which is all solid state inside the board, needs to be powered with 24 volts. So make sure that when you're working on these units that the defrost thermostat is powered and that the timing circuit, which operates off of T1, is powered with 24 volts. Always check your wiring diagrams, and if the board has been updated or changed, there should be a wiring diagram that shows you how to connect the new board so that the electronic timing circuit is powered correctly. On some defrost boards, you not only have a T1 terminal, you also have a T2 circuit. And this is all solid state internal to the board. The circuit between T1 and T2 must be completed for the defrost logic to power up and run the timer to initiate a defrost cycle. So as we said, make sure you double check your wiring diagram if you have any defrost issues, particularly after changing the board and maybe the board has been upgraded and you've not wired it correctly. So either check your wiring diagram or call your local service manager to assist you in wiring the boards correctly.
Go to arefco.com for more videos. Like, subscribe, and check back every week for new videos.